Joab cast a fleeting look at Amasa's body lying in a pool of blood. He had no time to waste. He had another mission to complete. Sheba, Bichri's son, had to die that day, and he would see to it. Tired but triumphant, he returned later from the battlefield with Sheba's head. Himself, Joab was a troubled man, clutching desperately at his position as David's captain of hosts. Joab was not going to give it up without putting up a fight. Earlier, without consulting the king, he killed Abner. Abner would pose a threat to Joab's position if the Benjamites supported David by peaceful means. David sighed as he heard of Amasa's murder. These sons of Zeruiah, how they wearied him. They were simply too much for him. Joab was his nephew, yet, in spite of all the valuable battles he had fought for him, in spite of all the support he had given David to establish his throne in Israel, David knew that Joab would act impulsively for his own selfish gains and thus destroy all David's carefully laid out plans and delicate long-term strategies within moments. He had done it once by killing Abner, while David had tried his best to win the Benjamites' hearts. Now he had killed Amasa, the one David had wanted to place in Joab's own position. Time had passed and Israel was going through a comparatively peaceful phase in history. David, who was old and weak, decided that it was high time for Solomon's coronation as heir to the coveted throne. It was at this time that news came to him about Adonijah's plans to seize the throne. It was Joab again who had supported Adonijah's schemes, but David saw to it that Solomon was crowned as Israel's rightful new king, and Joab's plans ended in failure. It was after this drama that David called Solomon and started talking to him about what he should do to Joab. Joab had vexed the king's heart, and David told Solomon, "Moreover, thou knowest also what Joab the son of Zeruiah did to me. He shed the blood of war in peace. Do therefore according to thy wisdom, and let not his hoar head go down to the grave in peace." Looking at the life of Joab, we see he was a man who persevered so much, yet lost his final reward. What happened? Consider the key verses again. "Look to yourselves, that we lose not those things which we have wrought, but that we receive a full reward. If any man's work abide, which he hath built thereupon, he shall receive a reward." We should be careful about every action, word and thought of ours till the very end. Our work should abide upon what we have built. God is not going to cancel present unfaithfulness against past achievements. No. Dear child of God, you can't entitle yourself to a little moral holiday just because you've worked hard and been true to God all your life. In Ezekiel chapter 33 verse 13, the word of God clearly says, "When I shall say to the righteous that he shall surely live, if he trust to his own righteousness and commit iniquity, all his righteousness shall not be remembered, but for his iniquity that he hath committed, he shall die for it." Despite all what Joab did for the king, he had an adamant, selfish nature which propelled him to do his own will against the king's will. At some of the most decisive moments of his life, David's accusations against him was that he broke peace, shed the blood of war during peace, and therefore he commands Solomon not to let him die in peace. When we have every opportunity for peace and yet trouble others for our selfish gains, it is a grievous sin in God's eyes. Yes, we too may do many mighty things for the Lord, but remember, all that matters at the end, to receive our full and final reward, is doing His will and His perfect will alone, every time, till the very end. It may be very painful and humbling at times. For Joab, a man who had practically established the throne for David, losing his place to people like Abner and Amasa was something that wasn't simply going to be done. This was the driving force behind his disobedience to the king's will. In the same manner, doing God's pleasure may hurt our pride and self, but remember, it will earn us our full reward. Whether it is loss, shame, or sorrow, remember it is temporary, and make a decision to do only God's will. Don't destroy all what you've built with momentary disobedience. By walking according to our own ways, rather than God's, we disturb His eternal plan or strategy concerning us. At the end, we will only lose our king's pleasure, break peace, and finally become abominable in His sight. Reading about Joab's end, we see that although he too held on to the horns of the altar, he found no mercy and he had to die pathetically at Solomon's command. Horns represent salvation. Giving room to self will may finally cause us to lose even our salvation, although we may have worked all our lives for God. Dear child of God, Jesus has promised, saying, "Behold, come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according as his work shall be." Our reward is coming with Him. When He comes, we, who are going to meet Him in the midair, are going to receive it there. So don't let Satan trick you into losing this glorious final reward by instigating you into making some momentary allowance for your self-will at any point in your life. Do only God's pleasure and the reward is yours forever.